My name is Sarah Bennett, and on the night of my father-in-law's 60th birthday, I stood in front of 300 guests and used his own toast to end my marriage in less than 2 minutes. I did not do it for revenge. I did it because I had already spent 2 weeks carrying a secret so ugly that silence had started to feel like drowning. None of those 300 guests knew that the two people sitting closest to the birthday cake, the ones everyone assumed deserved to be celebrated that night, had already destroyed everything long before I ever touched that microphone. I remember the weight of the small device in my clutch. I remember the cold metal of my wedding ring against my palm right before I took it off for the last time. And I remember the silence that followed, the kind that falls over a room when 300 people stop breathing at the same moment. To understand why I did it, you need to know who I was before I became the woman on that stage. If you're watching this tonight, tell me in the comments where you're tuning in from. I think a lot of you are going to recognize pieces of yourselves in this story. 3 years earlier, I was 27, working as a marketing coordinator, renting a one-bedroom apartment above a laundromat, and quietly convinced no one was ever going to choose me and actually stay. My parents divorced when I was 9. My father left for another woman when I was 14, and I grew up watching my mother work 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. I promised myself that if I ever built a family of my own, it would be different. Solid. Safe. That's what I thought I'd found in Alex Whitfield. Alex was 31, quietly charming, the kind of man who remembered small details about you. He came from money. His father, Richard Whitfield, had built a shipping and logistics empire out of a single Charleston warehouse. Alex worked in the company's finance division and still showed up early every morning like he had something to prove. His mother had died of cancer when he was 17, and when he spoke about her, his voice changed in a way I'd never heard from anyone else. Richard welcomed me the way I'd always wished my own father had. At our engagement dinner, he hugged me and said, "You're not marrying into money, sweetheart. You're marrying into a family. And in this family, we protect each other." I believed him completely. There was one complication. 6 months before our wedding, Richard remarried. His new wife, Victoria Hale, was 38, a former real estate agent with a camera-ready smile and a habit of touching your arm when she spoke to you, only 7 years older than Alex himself. Alex once admitted something about her felt performative, but he seemed to make peace with it. "She makes my dad happy," he told me. We moved into the Whitfield mansion, 11 bedrooms, a koi pond, a private theater, because Richard wanted family under one roof for our first year. On our wedding day, Alex gave me a small gold ring that had belonged to his late grandmother. "It's the only thing in that house that's never been touched by anything ugly," he told me. I wore it every day. I did not know yet that I would eventually throw that same ring at his face in front of 300 witnesses. It was a Tuesday afternoon in early spring when everything changed. I was in the study waiting on a delivery, so I pulled up the home security app to check the front gate. The mansion had cameras in nearly every shared space, installed years earlier after an attempted break-in. I scrolled back, looking for the delivery truck. That's when I saw them. Alex and Victoria, alone in the living room, on a weekday afternoon when Richard was 3 states away at a conference. I told myself I was misreading it. But within 30 seconds, there was no version of that footage that could be explained as innocent. I sat completely still, my hands ice cold, watching a version of my husband I did not recognize. Then I opened the archive and scrolled back through weeks of it. Months of it. Always on the days Richard traveled. I found something else, 2 old messages between Alex and Victoria, backed up months earlier to a shared cloud account we'd set up together, back when I trusted him enough to link everything I owned to everything he owned. Messages that left no room for interpretation and told me exactly how long this had been going on and exactly how little either of them had thought about what it would do to the people around them. I want to tell you I screamed. That is not what happened. What happened is I sat at the kitchen island while Alex kissed my forehead and asked how my day was, and I said, "Fine." Just a quiet one, and my voice did not shake once. That was the first night I learned to lie with a calm face. It would not be the last. 2 weeks. That's how long I decided to wait. 2 weeks of setting the table for the two people who had shattered every promise I believed in, calculating exactly how the truth was finally going to see daylight. I told no one, not my mother, not a friend, not a lawyer. I was terrified someone would talk me into handling it quietly, into protecting the family name. I was done protecting people who had never once protected me. Every night, I copied more footage onto a small external drive hidden inside a box of scarves in my closet. I learned that Richard's birthday party would use the same projector he used every year for his toast. So I asked Victoria, with a smile I didn't know I was capable of faking, whether I could prepare something special for the toast this year, since the two of us had grown so close. She said yes instantly, already imagining, I'm sure, some sentimental slideshow. She had absolutely no idea what she was agreeing to. There were nights I sat on the bathroom floor with the tap running, so no one would hear me cry. There were mornings I looked in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back, hollow-eyed, exhausted, and somehow calmer than I had ever felt in my life. Because for the first time, I was not waiting for someone else to fix what was broken. I was going to do it myself. I did not know it then, but that external drive was about to become the most important object I have ever owned. Richard's 60th birthday arrived on a warm Saturday in late spring. 300 guests filled the ballroom, business partners, extended family, old friends of Richard's from decades back. String lights hung across the ceiling, and a live band played jazz standards in the corner. Victoria wore emerald green and never left his side, playing the devoted wife flawlessly. Around 9, Richard's assistant announced that his daughter-in-law had prepared something special for the toast. I walked up with a flash drive in my clutch and an adapter I'd tested 4 times that week. Richard beamed at me. "Go on, sweetheart," he said, lifting his glass. "Make an old man cry." I connected the device. I picked up the microphone. "Richard," I said, "you always told me that in this family, we protect each other. Tonight, I want to show you exactly how well that's been working." Then I pressed play. The first clip filled the massive screen behind me, time-stamped 11 months earlier. For a moment, the room didn't understand what it was looking at. Then it did. I will never forget 300 people going silent at the exact same instant. Not gasping. Not whispering. Silent, the way a room goes quiet right before something breaks. I let it play for nearly a full minute, clip after clip, message after message, large enough for every table to read. I did not narrate it. I did not need to. I watched Richard's face collapse in real time. I watched Victoria's practiced smile disappear. I watched Alex turn the color of the tablecloths. Somewhere near the back, a woman gasped, "Oh my God," and then said nothing else, because there was nothing else left to say. When the screen went dark, I walked directly to Alex's table. I slid off the wedding ring, the one that had never been touched by anything ugly, and looked at the man I had married for the last time. "You didn't just break your marriage," I told him. "You broke your father's." Then I threw the ring. It struck him just below the eye. I did not wait to see where it landed. I walked out of that ballroom, past 300 silent faces, into the warm spring air, and for the first time in 2 weeks, I let myself breathe. I only learned what happened next through second-hand accounts, because I never set foot in that house again. Richard filed for divorce from Victoria within the week and disinherited Alex, completely stripped from the company, the trust fund, the family name. According to a cousin who was in the room, Richard told him he no longer had a son. I didn't celebrate any of it, and I want to be honest with you about that. There was no satisfaction in watching a family collapse, even one that had lied to me for a year. There was only a strange, aching relief that I was no longer the only person who knew the truth. I packed 2 suitcases, left the ring on the kitchen counter, and moved 400 miles away to Austin, where no one knew my name. The first year was not easy. I took a job answering phones at a small marketing agency, barely covering rent on a studio apartment above a dry cleaner. Some nights I called my mother just to hear a voice that had known me before any of it happened, without ever telling her the full truth. But slowly, I rebuilt something. I started freelancing on the side, and within 2 years, I had my own small office and clients across 4 states. The day I signed the lease on that office, I stood in the empty room by myself and cried for an entirely different reason than I had a year before. I bought my first home not long after, with only my own name on the deed. I kept exactly one object from my old life, not the ring, but a small notebook Richard had given me on our wedding day, inscribed, "Welcome to the family, truly." I kept it because it reminded me that even good people can build something on a foundation of lies without realizing it, and that starting over doesn't mean everything before was worthless. 3 years after that night, I met David Reyes, a supplier I worked with through my business, steady in a way that felt completely unfamiliar to me. On our third meeting, when I mentioned, carefully, that I'd been married before, he didn't ask a single probing question. He just said, "Whenever you're ready to tell me, I'll listen. And if you're never ready, that's okay too." It took me 8 months to tell him everything, start to finish. He listened without interrupting once. When I finished, he didn't tell me I was strong or brave, he just took my hand and said, "Thank you for trusting me with that." That was the exact moment I knew he was different. Around that same time, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. It was Alex. He'd heard about the business I'd built. He wrote that he and Victoria had ended things bitterly within a year, each blaming the other. He wrote that he thought about that night often. He wrote that he was sorry. I wrote back, short and calm, "I believe you're sorry. But I didn't build this life waiting for an apology. I built it so I would never need one to feel whole again. I hope you find peace, Alex." I already have. I never heard from him again, and I never needed to. David and I have been together 2 years now. Last spring, he proposed on a quiet beach with no one else around, no ballroom, no 300 guests, no cameras. Just the two of us and the sound of the water. I said yes without a single doubt in my chest. People sometimes ask if I regret what I did that night, if it was too public, too final. Every time, I tell them the truth. I do not regret it, not for 1 second. I spent a year being told that protecting family means staying silent about the things that hurt you most. I learned, the hard way, that silence never protected me. It only protected the people who were lying to me. If you take one thing from my story, let it be this: your worth was never determined by who chose to betray you. It was only ever determined by what you chose to build afterward. If any part of this felt familiar, if you've ever carried a secret that wasn't yours to carry, or protected someone who never protected you back, tell me in the comments. I read every one. Because whatever ballroom you're standing in tonight, there is a life waiting for you on the other side of the truth. Silence never protected me. But the truth finally did.